And she said, I can see him. And my friend said, what can you see? She said, I see a man with a crown on his head.
We had to share this story for Easter week. Miraculous healings are occurring in Israel.
It has been reported that a woman in Israel miraculously saw Jesus himself. Now, as you can imagine, this would be the biggest headline ever, to some people's delight and to, well, other people's horror. So we need to get to the bottom of this. In order to understand the nature of the spotting, we need to understand the nature of miracles themselves. Here is Bishop Barron to explain.
Technically, a miracle from mirare in Latin is something that's amazing, that you're amazed at. And Aquinas says something that has a hidden cause. So there's a cause that is not apparent to us immediately. And as a result of that, we're amazed. That's a miracle. In the Gospels, for example, in the Gospel of John, the miracles are always called signs, semia, in John's Greek. And so they're not just like magical, extraordinary things. They're signs that are pointing to a deeper dimension. So bring those two together. It's something that's amazing, whose cause we don't know immediately, and which signal to us another world or a deeper space. I'll say something about miracle from Augustine's standpoint. Wonderful, I think, reflecting on the miracle of the changing of water into wine at Cana. Augustine said, and here he's against the modern reading of it, miracles aren't suspensions of the laws of nature, because that would go against God's order and reasonability. Rather, they are, he said, intensifications of the laws of nature. So water is turned into wine all the time. It just happens slowly. Rainwater falls. It's absorbed by the grape vine, and then the grapes grow. Then the grapes are picked, and then they're crushed, and they're fermented, and then they become wine. So water has in fact become wine, but just through a long, slow process. What happened at Cana, he said, was just very intensified, and it happened very quickly without the intervention of secondary causality. So it wasn't a suspension of the laws of nature, it was an intensification.
According to Bishop Barron, then, miracles are amazing, have a hidden cause, signal something, and don't defy the laws of nature, but intensify them. Let's keep this in mind while we hear the evidence. Unfortunately, we also might have a controversy brewing on our hands, because where the miraculous sighting took place is a hotly contested alternative site called
The Garden Tomb.
This is a fabricated site to many, a false and erroneous location of where Jesus was actually buried. Their own scholars even admit this.
A word about the Garden Tomb. I love it. Anytime I lead tours, it's peaceful. We take communion there. It's fabulous. But even the director of the Garden Tomb knows that that's not the historical site.
The question that arises for me is, if a place is so obviously fabricated, can miracles happen there? Would God work where there has been so many lies? Here's the evidence.
Cesar Flatus works here and recalls a time when a man from Romania came here who had incredibly poor eyesight. Then this man walked into the tomb.
He wanted to look at the symbol that is inside the tomb, the symbol of a cross that has the Greek letters, and he wasn't able to make out the symbol very well, so he removed his glasses, and then all of a sudden he was able to see perfectly. I hear the men screaming inside the tomb saying, I can see, I can see. Of course, he was speaking in Romanian. His pastor, who was standing nearby, he translated for me. He said, he can see.
But there's more.
Another miracle that took place involved a boy who suffered from hydrocephalus, an abnormal and dangerous buildup of fluid deep in the brain. Now, every year his family came from Ecuador to the Garden Tomb.
This young man, Giancarlo Rodriguez, was that little boy, and back then he was paralyzed from the waist down due to the hydrocephalus.
20 plus years ago, they came as a family. They brought the son inside the tomb, and as they were praying, all of a sudden they hear their son crying. The husband turned around to look back to see what was going on, and then all of a sudden they see their son standing there. And that was the miracle. The healing took place at that moment.
Before that healing, Giancarlo's sister had lost her faith.
She couldn't understand why God would allow such a thing to happen to her brother. But then after she saw the healing that God performed in her brother's body, that became the turning point in her life.
As you can see, this is progressing. Not only was a man's eyesight regained, but a child who was paralyzed began to walk again. This is starting to look like the Gospels, but there is even more.
Tingman also recalled a Japanese non-believer who a guide took around, starting at the overlook of Skull Hill, where many believe Christ was crucified.
And she took her to Skull Hill and explained about Calvary and so on. And this woman said, she spoke English, she said, "I know nothing about Jesus Christ. Tell me more." She went into the tomb, and my colleague said when she was in the tomb, she was visibly moved. Something was moving her, and she was weeping actually. And she said, I can see him. And my friend said, "What can you see?" She said, "I see a man with a crown on his head." Now, this is a woman who didn't know anything about the gospel stories.
So here is a woman who knows nothing about Jesus. She enters the tomb and begins to have a miraculous vision of a man who could only be described as Jesus. That is amazing. This seems to fit perfectly what Bishop Barron is saying is the criterion for a miracle. This is certainly amazing. It has a hidden cause, meaning she's in the tomb experiencing something otherworldly. It seems not to defy nature, but to intensify nature as she is connected with the ultimate reality, who is Jesus Christ himself. I think it's fair to say there was a miraculous sighting and spotting of Jesus in Israel recently. But let me know what you think in the comments below.
Something was moving her, and she was weeping actually. And she said, I can see him. And my friend said, "What can you see?" She said, "I see a man with a crown on his head." Now, this is a woman who didn't know anything about the gospel stories.
So if you're still around, I thought it would be helpful to discuss a little bit more about the nature of miracles and why you should believe in miracles in the first place. I think many times there's people, and I have been one of them, and maybe you are too, that you get a little bit on edge when people are making miraculous claims, or you have an allergy of skepticism. It's okay to be a little skeptical about things. It's also good not to believe everything you hear. So here are a few reasons why you should actually believe in miracles in the first place. So the first reason why you should believe in miracles is that the universe exists at all. We have to ask the question, why is there something rather than nothing? You see, the very fact that the universe exists violates what we might expect if only natural processes were at work internally within the universe. Matter, space, and time all had a beginning. So that points us to the beginning and suggests a cause beyond the nature or the finite temporal material universe that we perceive. Now, what you'll see is that the explanation of what that cause is corresponds to the God of the Bible. The number two is that there is so much eyewitness testimony to the fact of miracles that goes all across the globe, transcends cultures, and not only transcends culture, but it isn't encapsulated in time to a specific era. So from ancient Egypt to modern day India, there are millions of attested miracles, reported miracles, unexplained healings, visions, near-death experiences, and impossible rescues. The consistency of these claims across time, geography, and worldview suggests that they're not just merely figments of people's imaginations. And this is the point if we're thinking about this logically and reasonably. If even a faction are true, miracles are real, which means you would have to disprove all of them to prove that miracles aren't real. And it really gets you to think about yourself. If you don't believe in miracles and millions of people have and do, are they right and you're wrong? Or are you right and they are wrong? Reason will say that you are wrong and they are right because they are many and you are one. It's much more possible that you are being misguided, misled. It's much more possible that you are wrong and they are right. It's much more possible that you have the false data and they have the valid data. That's what reason will tell you. And therefore you should believe in miracles. Number three is that consciousness. How in the world are we to explain consciousness from physical laws alone? How does matter produce mind? How does the firing of neurons create a sense of you? You see, even leading scientists admit that consciousness, your inner world of thought, love, experience, awareness, and emotions, it defies complete material explanation. If you are more than atoms, then something immaterial is at work in you. And of course, that would be a miracle. You can't overlook this detail. What about the documented medical healings that science can't explain? Medical journals and peer reviewed studies have documented cases where patients recover from terminal illnesses, paralysis, as we saw in this clip, blindness, and blindness with no natural explanation. Some are instantaneous, others require a little bit more time. And what's interesting is that doctors will often write spontaneous remission. And of course, that's just code for we have no idea what happened. Now, just because we have no idea what happened, we can still look at the facts of what did happen and say that there is no natural explanation for what took place. Therefore, this spontaneous remission is really, well, what? A miracle. So we have evidence of miracles being attested in peer reviewed studies and journals. And then the last reason, proof why you should believe in miracles and how you should think about miracles is that we desire for something that transcends kind of the immediate effects of death and pain that we experience in the world. Why are humans universally, and we see this in their stories, we see this in their laws and their ethics, why are societies, cultures drawn to stories of hope, healing, and divine intervention? And again, this isn't just one culture, this isn't just one nation. This is true universally across the board. Why do we instinctively reach beyond the natural in moments of pain and trial? You see, we have a longing for something miraculous. And since we do, that should clue us in that it's not a delusion, but something that gets at the very heart of human nature. As C.S. Lewis himself wrote, if I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. The sheer fact that we can hope for something that is not within the material universe points to the fact that the material universe is not all that there is. You see, if the world was just purely material and if our brains were just didn't have a conscience and were just firing chemicals that were deterministic in nature, we shouldn't be able to hope for something different. It should just be what it is, and we shouldn't be able to think about something that which is not. But of course we can. We can imagine something that is not of this world. And of course, that seems to be a proof that there is something beyond this world. That is a powerful argument for miracles because when something like a miracle happens, the sheer fact that we can point it out points to the fact that there is some truth behind it as well. So, those are just a few things that you need to be thinking about with miracles. You should believe in miracles, not just because of the millions and millions of testimonies about miracles, but precisely because it's more reasonable to do so. If you don't believe in miracles, and universally they've been accepted across time, space, and history by millions and millions of people, either millions of people are deluded or you are. What's more reasonable, to think that millions of people are diluted or you have maybe gotten it wrong? It's much more reasonable to think that you are wrong. All right, that's all I have for this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Remember that Christianity is Christ, and without Christ, there is no Christianity. Jesus Christ is coming back, and history and modern news reports from just a few days ago are pointing to that reality. So be imminently expecting him, desiring him, and hoping for his heavenly return and for our hope for the future. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.